Les Wexner is actually, and I'll talk about some of our CEOs, has talked about, and studied leadership. And his observation, both in his company and his life and in our work in the partnership, is that curiosity is one of the most important ingredients of any leader. Well, that's exactly what's happening today, right? You're curious, you're thinking about what's happening in other communities, why you might have dared to invite a guy like me, why you might have conversations about your own community, because you want to learn from one another. You know that you don't know what you don't know, and you're willing to think about it. And so that curiosity has manifested over the 15 years then of the formal history of the partnership. We've done trips. We just got back from a trip from the West Coast, took 40 people to see Cisco and Google and Facebook and Stanford. And we were doing that 3 weeks ago because we were curious. We wanted to learn from what was happening, experience it firsthand, understand how it applies back in our community. And then we've had a whole host of outside advisors, David Gergen, Bruce Katz, Jan Rifkin, different colleagues that have held posts like mine in other cities that we're always learning from and thinking about. So the second kind of lesson that we've learned is that the curiosity for groups like ours is a great bond that brings us together, and it's a great manifestation of leadership back in our community. We've learned a lot of lessons, some easy, some hard, some good, some bad, about the power of collaboration in organizations in groups like ours. I mentioned we're now 50. 7 years ago, when I took the realm of the partnership, we were 15. So in the last 7 years, we've had a great expansion of the partnership and involvement of others, intentional about having females at the table, intentional about not just having CEOs that are running the billion-dollar companies, but other key community leaders. And so we've been very specific about the collaborative approach. We've also said we are, by no apologies, a private sector organization. And so when we convene, it's the CEOs only. You're not allowed to send a deputy, although we interact with general counsels and heads of HR and have communities of practice within our companies that we organize. We want the CEO in the room, no substitutes, and no public sector involvement. Now, that may fly in the face of the whole conversation of the public-private partnership. I'll tell you there are many, many instances in which we invite our public sector leaders into the room. But this is a place for the private sector to talk about the issues that are facing our community from our perspective. But when we do that, we always go and have the conversations with our mayor, with our governor, with our representatives in D.C., and we are terribly interactive with public officials. We don't think employers care where their employees are, or vice versa. And so we very much think of ourselves as a regional organization. We also do it with the mindset of so goes downtown, so goes the suburbs, and vice versa, by the way. And so we have been very, very focused on downtown development and placemaking. Without going through the litany of projects over the last 5 years and for the next 5 years, we have about $400 million of public-private partnership projects that we are leading in our downtown. And they go from redevelopment of the riverfront to the creation of a new arts and cultural peninsula, to downtown parks, to a lot of things in between. And we have made a very conscious effort in placemaking. It kind of reminds me, I've come to a place like this, and I'm a big believer in place in the role of the private sector and public-private partnerships in making those places, and you all are being really successful here. So regionalism matters, but don't mistake regionalism for a lack of interest in downtown. And it is that partnership that in this era of reurbanization that we believe is really, really critical. So the fifth comment I would make is that the main thing is the main thing is the main thing. Now, repeat it back 3 times. I won't do it. It's a tongue twister. But it's about focus. It is about what is the Columbus Partnership here to do. And in those early days, our founders would say, well, we first just kind of wanted to get to know one another. Well, we're more than just a social networking group. In the kind of the mid-term of our organization, when we had 15 CEOs, we would create the priority list of 30 different things. We were going to coordinate philanthropy, and we were going to focus on the United Way, and we were going to drive forward arts collaboration, and we were going to do economic development, we were going to reform education, and it was a litany of everything. We were all things because 15 different CEOs had 15 different passions, and everybody said, great, I'll support yours, and you support mine, and I'll support yours, and that will be the Columbus Partnership. The sixth thing I would reflect on is being bold. You get 50 CEOs in the room that are running the companies that our CEOs are. They want action, and they want bold action, and they want big ideas. And we've been the place that holds informally the competitiveness agenda of Central Ohio, maybe for that matter Ohio, and certainly for Columbus. A bold set of actions that are helping to drive our community forward. They are aspirational by design because we think there's a secret sauce in being aspirational and not just chasing work to do work and not just being average in the things that we choose to take on. 7 years ago, when we said let's focus on economic prosperity, we created an organization that's our region's economic development organization called Columbus 2020. And we can tell you that it sets to create 150,000 net new jobs, personal per capita income increases of 40%, that we are looking to create $8 billion of new capital investment in our community, that we wanted to attract $200 billion of venture capital to our community. And I can tell you across a dashboard, every single quarter, for that matter, every single week, how we're doing on those metrics. Now, the good news is we're doing really, really well, which makes it a lot of fun. But we hold ourselves accountable to those bold aspirations. So it's not about just simply putting bold and aspirational out there. It's about them holding yourself accountable. We really do practice a level of patience. And that has come with a set of community leaders that have been in the room well before the founding of the Columbus Partnership and have been in their jobs and in the community and watching things. And against the very aggressive goal setting and being aspirational and holding yourself accountable, what we've learned is that sometimes you've got to let it come to you. Sometimes you've got to go out and meet folks in the street. Powerful, powerful lesson tied back to collaboration. In our economic development efforts, we could have easily just passed the hat among each other, done the strategies and the sessions among each other, and instead we hosted meetings every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the better part of 18 months and touched 2,000 people, 20 people at a time in focus group sessions that changed the vocabulary of the community. It was about going slow to build followership, to build understanding, to build constituencies. None of us are going to be in the room a decade from now. And so what's that going to mean to the Columbus Way is a very strategic question in our community and something that we're asking ourselves, that we're having conversations in this whole topic of teaching it, where the future leaders are coming from, how we're going to grow that leadership, how we're going to think about the culture that has created a great organization and a great community and transcend this moment in time. So my greatest fear is we don't transcend it. My greatest fear is that we took a moment in time, a group of leaders, and we took the power of those leaders and that collaboration, and the stars were aligned, and we ran hard with it, which is what we're doing. And we weren't strategic about thinking about the survivability of our company. And we're a nonprofit, but I call us a company. How many Fortune 100 companies are in business today that were in business 100 years ago? You know, certainly less than 4 or 5. And I don't want to be one of those companies in our community, because I think the issues will be no less daunting 100 years from now. Our cities and our states are places that we can still mix it up. They're the places where we can still have rooms like this and work on projects collaboratively and make things happen, and to create momentum and to forge our own destiny. And we're a big believer in kind of looking at this, and Bruce Katz has been a lot of help and thought leadership in this space, that increasingly the power really is in cities. And that gives us a big resolve to do the work that we're doing to bring public sector leaders of our cities that are already organized, and organize a private sector group like ours, and then mix it up for the future. So yeah, we care a little bit about what happens in Washington at the macro level, just like everybody else does, but we're taking control of our own destiny.